Welcome to the Fuzz, where we envision the ideas we'll all be buzzing about in the future.
The Fuzz. In the future.
What will dogs look like?
In the future.
Will podcasts still exist?
In the future.
Will computers take over?
In the future.
What will music sound like?
In the future.
People still wear shoes.
In the future.
What will advertising be like?
In the future.
Will we have computer chips in our brains?
In the future.
Will everyone in the world speak the same language?
In the future.
Will we be ultimately free to float about the universe?
In the future.
The Fuzz starts now.
The Fuzz!
While the things we talk about on this podcast might seem impossible or even slightly insane, so did transistor radios, cassette tapes, and auto-tune at some point.
On today's episode, we're talking about podcasting.
The future of podcasting?
That's right. The thing we're doing right now is the thing we're talking about. It's crazy. I know. Where will this go? What will we be doing right now, but in the future?
Where do you think we'll be 5 years from now in podcasting? What do you think it'll be like?
Well, I don't know that it'll be all that much different 5 years from now. I was trying to think about it. Other than podcasting hasn't even peaked yet. Podcasting's been growing and growing, becoming more popular. I found this stat from Statista. From 2021, there were an estimated 120 million podcast listeners in the country. And forecasts suggest that the number of podcast listeners will surpass 160 million in 2023. So we're looking at jumping up like 20 million a year. So I think what we could see probably in 5 years from now, more podcasts. I think we're going to get more podcast networks like Spotify, where they're just buying them up, trying to create, here's where you go for your podcasts. This is the place as we get like this exploding volume of podcasts. And then we're going to get more celebrity podcasts, like the big names on podcasts to attract people there. So guys like us are basically like left in the dust. Also, bigger budgets, more polished. It's kind of going to be like movies where things are just blowing up. You're getting the big names in there, the big producers, the big budgets, as this audience just keeps growing.
So you're thinking like streaming services are buying up content, and they're basically saying, if you want to see this episode or you want to see this series, you have to come to us to listen to them.
Yeah, pretty similar. What we're seeing right now with TV. I think podcasts will see something similar, and they'll be pouring the money into it too.
Yeah, no, I think that's very, very realistic. Exactly what you're thinking, where essentially like Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, all fighting for the content, right? And paying for it too. What about 50 years from now though?
Well, this is where things get pretty interesting. I got a few different ideas I'll throw out to you with increasing levels of weirdness, wildness to them. One, something like Pod My Life. Someone invents an app a la TikTok that makes it easier for anyone to start podcasting, editing with production. So the whole world is basically podcasting. This is pretty near future, I think. We could see something like that where it becomes pretty easy, pretty simple, where anybody can just pick it up, put a podcast out there, and everybody's doing it because some app has made it fun, made it simple, made it social, shareable, something like that. We could easily see something like that in the next 10 years. Going a little further out there, how about metacasts? You're having a conversation with the hosts in a virtual world. No longer are you a passive listener to the podcast. You're involved, right?
Yeah.
Anyone who's listening is now talking to the host, whoever's having the podcast in, the metaverse in this world. You're now kind of a participant in it. Going on to the next one, robocasts. What about podcasts run exclusively by robots AI? We can listen live as robots become more intelligent and learn, talk to each other, and make plans to take over the world. We can hear them, have all sorts of discussions there. Robocasts, humans Don't even need them anymore. Why pay these people when robots can do the work? And finally, the last one I've got, Mindcasts. Thanks to the iChip, you can now listen to shows of whoever you want, talking about whatever you want, whenever you want. Maybe it's you and Michelangelo discussing a new piece of art. Maybe it's Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro talking about the latest cryptocurrency ad. You pick the show, you imagine it, it happens. You can watch and listen to it while you do anything else. Maybe it's while you're working, sleeping, driving. And it plays in your head like a thought. Mindcasts. So that's probably, your farthest out idea. So there you go. Pod My Life, Robocast, Metacast, Mindcasts.
I like that.
Just add cast to the end of anything.
Futuristic thinking you got there and just casting out those ideas. You're casting those ideas out into the universe. So I love that. I do like
robots. Is that
the robots one is hard for me to grasp, but I like where you're going. I'm not sure what the robots are going to do, but that's cool. I get it. I get it.
That's what we do, but robots.
Yeah. Not every cast is going to be a winner. You know what I mean? Like some casts, like today, some casts are not that great.
Just not the best.
I like the Metacast. So I think I'll riff off those a little bit. I have some initial thoughts. I think Radiocast. I think about podcasting will be the primary source of information gathering in the future. It'll be the news of tomorrow. Casts will be everywhere. It will take the place of radio, essentially. So Radiocast, there will be so much content that you'll basically tell your virtual assistant to find info about dog kennels, about grunge bands, about digital pants, and boom, you'll be transported into a cast with that topic. Imagine yourself transported into them like a Star Trek episode, and suddenly you're in the cast, right? Radio casts.
All right.
So this is just a completely off the cuff idea. One of the things that you said about mindcasts makes me think of, what if you had casts? Imagine your consciousness. You download your consciousness into this platform. Let's just say it's a platform because we all know what that means today. It kind of plays off Mindcast. It could be called Mindcast. It could be called Consciousness Cast. And in this supercomputer platform that's Consciousness Cast, Mindcast, whatever you want to call it, you've got millions of people in there. They're all uploading their consciousness. And now you're having conversations, like you're talking about having a conversation with someone. You're having conversations with all of these different people. Maybe simultaneously, you could be having a conversation with, like you said, Michelangelo. You could be having a conversation with Martin Scorsese. You could be having a conversation with Keanu Reeves. You could be having a conversation with all these people simultaneously, and it's being broadcasted where anyone can listen.
And eternally. You don't even have to be alive anymore.
No, that's the best part. So you could essentially die, and people could be listening to your thoughts on a specific topic, riffing with Eddie Vedder, create new lyrics for a song on a podcast that's not really a podcast anymore, having a moment.
Leave the earth, but you'll go on casting forever.
Yeah, you're casting your consciousness out into the universe.
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
That was all riffed from your Mindcast. I love that. It sort of inspired that, whatever that was that I just came up with.
Yeah. You can even take Mindcast for that because it's pretty good. It's a better idea, so might as well use the name.
I mean, at some point, how do you live on? Maybe it's your consciousness being uploaded. Maybe it's interacting with people in a format that's very similar to what we're doing right now, right? We're interacting, we're communicating, we're having a moment in the future. That moment could live on infinitely with whoever. Sit down, have a conversation.
Endless radio dialogue, conversations of voices, some alive, some no longer here, who are just talking about things endlessly forever. And you can just, I'm sure there'll be some sort of search engine to help you find your way around this, but that would be super cool.
Yeah. The engine, we'll just call it engine because you're not searching anymore. You're just consuming. There's no such thing as search because in this future, you're consuming it and it knows. I don't need to type in what I want at that moment because the consciousness.
That's a good point. You're connected, fully connected.
Yeah. And that is the cast of the future.
I mean, it's hard to beat that.
You're just being nice.
That's good. puts RoboCast to shame.
Did you like how I threw in a little props to Digital Pants in the last one?
I did. You should try to put a little Easter egg of Digital Pants in every episode.
Digital Pants, it's the future right there.
You're walking around, you're wearing your digital pants, you're listening to Mindcast.
Like, this is too good to be true.
Like, this future, not bad. Not bad.
This is a hell of a future I'm living in.
I feel like we've reached the apex already. I don't know if you have anything else to share on the future of podcasts.
Well, really what we're saying, in a nutshell though, is podcasts are the future, right? This is in its infancy. And at some point it will become something more. You know what I mean?
It does kind of raise the question, a podcast, when it becomes something else, we put casts at the end of these things, like Mindcasts or, Metacasts. But when it becomes something totally different, is it really technically still a podcast? Will podcasts as we know them die and then just these other separate things are born off of them?
It's a good point. I think this is our limited human brains trying to attach meaning to things that we know today to be true. We think of radio and we think of casts and we sort of like combine this to like create this new thing. Sure, it's a new thing. What will it be called then? I think our limited capacity is like to create an iteration, of that thing.
Of what we know.
Of what we know to be true at this moment. But, in the future, that could be anything. So I agree with you. It would be probably something else. But that something else is very loosely connected to podcasts, thousands of years from now. And they're like, we can track that all the way back to the Fuzz podcast.
The Fuzz, episode 6.
They were talking about the future of podcasting, and they really went for it. Technically, we have conceptualized what that's like. And if that is the future, then technically, isn't it podcasting? Because we came up with it on a podcast. It's connected.
Technically, we should get royalties.
We don't need money in the future, obviously, but let's just say.
All we need is to let our consciousness pod into the night's air eternally.
Yeah. Just be free. Be free, Mindcast. Be free.
Well, that's all for this episode of The Fuzz. Tune in next time for more of tomorrow's buzz today.
Will people still be allergic to gluten?
Basically turned that up to 11. Some good stuff there. I like what we landed on was it's pretty good, what you came up with there.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going to come out of it because I thought we could riff a little bit on this one.
When I first started thinking about it, I don't know if there's anything here.
No, but that's kind of what's fun is it's the challenge of can we do something with that?
Yeah.
I always feel like that's my favorite time is you brainstorm and one idea might just be okay, but then when the other person says something, it sparks something in you.
Yeah, we always usually end up with something pretty good. So that was a good one. I like where it went. Deep thoughts of consciousness living on.
As Socrates once said,
all we are is dust in the wind.
Whoa, you come up with that? Yeah, dude.